Welcome, everyone. And my name is Lisa Vernon, and I am the CEO of Marlowe Joy Solutions. And welcome to our segment called From Mess to Mindfulness. Today, we're going to be featuring a message from Marvin Young, MC. And we are going to be talking about mental health awareness and getting to know Marvin Young and getting to know his story and his journey. And thank you, sir, for joining us today. I am really excited about this podcast and this opportunity. But before we get started and diving right into getting to know you a little better, we definitely wanted to introduce our co-host today. And we're going to start with myself. I am Lisa Vernon. I am the CEO of Marlowe Joy Solutions, and I'm also a licensed master social worker. And I am housed in Frisco, Texas, and this is Alexis Chaney. Alexis is a student at UNT, and she is majoring in music and German. And Vanessa Sanford is a licensed professional counselor supervisor and owner of Sanford Support Systems right here in Frisco, Texas. And we thank you for your time and opportunity. So we're just going to dive right in. How about it?
Okay.
How about we just do it? So before we get started, as I said before, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And we definitely wanted to mention that before we go into the segment of our conversation and making sure that everyone is aware. And I'm sure you've heard about Mental Health Awareness Month, and where we really focus on understanding mental health and what that is and what it means, and wrapping around supports and resources around that. But in addition to that, before we get started on the questions that we're going to ask you, we wanted to, today is the anniversary of George Floyd. And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention it at all to you. And I was just telling my colleagues before we got started today that I have 4 boys and 3 of them drive. And I was just telling them that, you know, we have conversations at home a lot about making sure that everything is up to date. You have your insurance, everything's registered, you don't have any contraband in your car. Those are the conversations that I'm finding as a mom of African-American males that I definitely need to make sure that they are safe and they are taking the proper precautions. The first question I would like to ask you, Marvin, is how has the wake of George Floyd and everything that's going around in the country regarding racism and marginalization of people, how has that had an impact on you directly?
I think in my interactions with people, I see a greater awareness and a greater sense of sensitivity, especially from those outside of the African-American community. For me personally, it was just, I couldn't watch the whole thing. You know what I mean? It's like, because that could be me, that could be a relative, that could be someone very close to me. So it wasn't just a piece of content like it was for a lot of other folks.
Right.
So I think in terms of the difference I see, I think it's the opening up of conversations, and also the removal of shields, if you will. So there's a lot of people that kind of hide behind the veneer of this is normal social discourse, so we don't discuss certain things, or I have certain beliefs that I won't say out loud, whether it be because of George Floyd or the environment with Trump or everything like that. That's kind of out the window. So a lot of quiet part out loud is coming out now. So dealing with that's required me to do a bit of a reset in terms of dealing with folks, because some stuff is said. I think the social media and online world has a little bit to do with that too. That there's a lot of people that are real brave behind a keyboard and a camera that would never say things to your face that they would there. But then if you're talking about social media or websites or anything, you're dealing with people where sometimes that's the only interaction they have. So they feel that they can say whatever, number one. And then number two, per the little incident that happened, even when you know, during our event that we did together, whatever, there's certain things that people say in front of you that they really wouldn't say in front of you if they weren't used to just talking to people online all the time.
That's so true. It's giving them permission to brave when they feel that they had that permission to do that. Right.
Exactly. So that's really what it is. I'm kind of performing a little reset to kind of adapt into just the new manner of discourse, I guess is the best way to say it.
Right. And you just mentioned something I should go back to, and how we came to be a connection between the two of us, how our worlds connected sometime a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Shay Reynolds.
Yeah.
And Shay and I are business partners, and we took her. She said, "Hey, I'm going on a road trip. You want to go? I'm sending you an Uber and getting you a hotel. Let's go to Texarkana." I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And Shay mentioned you to me before. And she talked to me about Marvin Young. She just mentioned your name and how wonderful you were, and that I definitely would be honored to meet you. And so when she invited me to come for the birthday party celebration that you were featured at, that is when you and I met for the very first time. And I told my colleagues about you immediately. In fact, I was texting Vanessa the whole time, like, Vanessa, you're gonna never believe who I'm in front of. But it was more than that for me, Marvin, with you. The first thing that you did when I met you was you introduced yourself to me as Marvin. As Marvin Young. And more than that, I was just really impressed by not only your journey as an artist, but I was also impressed by the sound check. And I'm gonna bring that nocturnal up again in our conversation.
Okay.
But I just wanted to give our audience an opportunity to know how we were connected during that small window of opportunity. And I'm glad that I did not pass up, which led to now. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and let Vanessa go ahead and ask the first question, and we'll get this party started.
Okay.
So Marvin, I'm so excited I listened to your Fresh Era episode, and it was so helpful to learn about you. One of the things that stood out to me was you, what I interpreted was that you wanted people to get to know you as Marvin, because people know you as Young MC, but there's a Marvin there. And so I was just, and the other thing I'll just tell you, besides being a mental health professional, I love 90s hip hop. Like, it's my favorite, especially for me personally. So my family, I'm first generation here. My family immigrated from Mexico in the late 60s. And so I'm navigating just what it's like to be in two different worlds of Mexico and in the United States in my own family and lived experience. And so 90s hip hop for me was this amazing experience of people telling the truth. And it was very liberating and exciting to hear people call out things that I experienced. And at first I thought, can we say this? Is this okay? Right. And it was exciting. And I was so thrilled to have that. And I love going back to that. And you're part of that for me. And so one of the things that I think about just going into this Mental Health Awareness Month, being a mental health professional, my honor, what I do as a therapist that I love is people come into my space, they take their armor off and they get to tell the truth. And it's hard to do that outside of places like this, because there are things like what you just talked about, Marvin, about social media and pressures and all these kinds of armor we have to wear. But here, once I've earned that trust, they get to take that off and get to be them. And I think about the hip hop music in a way that is unarmored, because you get to tell the truth. And so I link that together. And so I just wanted to hear from you, just for you, what stories for you that you connect with from your hip hop that live inside you, but as Marvin, maybe not as Young MC, that still need to be shared.
Well, I thought about that. And the thing is, it's not necessarily entire stories as much as it is my background and how I came into the business and just my approach and everything, not being as much of a unicorn now as it was then.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was also the hype that the stereotype of coming from, rough place and the only way out and all that other stuff. And that wasn't every hip hop artist, just like it wasn't every athlete.
Right.
And I think now a lot of kids listening, they don't necessarily, they have more of, they have a background closer to mine, and they can identify with being a kid, having to, going to college, looking at a career a certain way, then music giving you an opportunity. And literally, I had that summer of '89. My parents said, okay, we'll give you the summer, May of '89, we'll give you the summer. And if you don't, hit by the fall, or if something doesn't happen with the music by the fall, you either got to get a real job or you got to go to grad school. I'm like, okay. And then the record took off. And by the next February, I had a Grammy, it was multi-platinum, whatever. And so I chose the music. I guess in a lot of interviews and everything like that, it would seem like that was just so unique and so different, and no one else would do it like that or whatever. And there's a lot of kids that have that kind of background that are into hip hop that would approach it the same way, or at very least could identify with my journey. Mm-hmm. So that's really more of what it is. Plus the fact I said, that was almost a throwaway line in that podcast where I said I wanted people to know Marvin Young instead of Young MC. If you take the physical amount of time that I have written, performed as, done press for or whatever as Young MC, it's 1%, you know what I mean? 2%, 2% of my total time, on the planet since the record came out, that kind of thing. So when you look at it, you say, okay, am I going to try and have everybody get to know me during that 1 or 2% time when there's an unusual spotlight on me, or through my music, through my interviews, through interactions, whatever, am I going to show the other 97, 98, 99% of me so that people can see that it's not the persona as much as it is like, this is a regular person with a talent, true given, but this is a regular person doing it, or this is a person that I can identify with doing it. I have no interest in being a superhero because just not. I would have liked to have had idols in the music business, or people I looked up to with that kind of access or that kind of down to earth, approach. And when I hear about, people being down to earth, I feel good. Or when I meet somebody and see how down to earth, they are, it's real good. So that's really where I'm coming from with that.
That's really helpful. And it just makes me, what I hear is that you just were you. You didn't have to shape shift into anybody else. Oh. And now you're seeing that more frequently than maybe when you were coming up. But there's a grounded confidence in you, Marvin, to know you're just you, and you're just going to show up with your talent and not have to be anybody else. To me, that's a really powerful, from a mental health perspective, that's a grounded place of self-worth. And that's powerful.
Well, I went multi-platinum on my first record. I'd written multi-platinum for Tone Loc, toured, several continents, won a Grammy, won an American Music Award, won a Billboard Award, all within, 7-8 month period in terms of when the awards were won, all that. The whole thing was a white hot, probably, 12 to 20 months or something like that. But the thing is from early on, and by the way, I got signed in September of '87. I graduated college in May of '89, which means I went to school a year and a half after I had my record deal. Bust the Move came out finals week of senior year. Mm. So it was always, a hobby until the money started coming in and there was a lot more notoriety and I saw other opportunities. And even with an economics degree, it was telling me economically the best thing to do is to continue with music. Mm. Having said that, I knew how extraordinary the ride was. Yeah. So as soon as I'm getting ready to make my second album, I know it's not going to be as big as the first, if for no other reason is that I was coming in with rap, and especially with West Coast rap, at a time when it was the first exposure people had. So it's like a first girlfriend, it's like a first candy bar, it's like a first whatever. You can make the second one as good as you want. There are certain dynamics in people experiencing their first that you cannot duplicate with a second. So I took that to mean that if I didn't have the success on my second record that I did on my first, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't me losing talent. Plus the fact that I literally at the time would have had 21 years to make my first record and about a year and a half to make my second record in the midst of promoting the first one. So I wouldn't have a lot of downtime to say, okay, this is how I'm going to express myself. And whatever that expression is on the second record is going to be submitted into an environment that people already have a preconceived notion of me. They have a preconceived notion of rap. There are new kids coming out, you know, that with different sounds or whatever. So I'm also competing against my old self.
Yeah.
You know, so when you look at that, when they talk about the sophomore slump or things like that, it's virtually impossible. You know, that's why I brought that Bruce Springsteen story that I related. He felt bad for me, and I didn't understand it until afterwards. I understood. I would have felt bad for me because there's nowhere to go, especially in a really fledgling genre like rap.
Yeah. Do you have that self-reflection now, or did you have that self-awareness back then?
I didn't have this level of self-awareness, but I had enough self-awareness to know, you know, that, oh, you know, my record didn't go top 10, or my record didn't go top 5. Let me go get a drink. Let me go get some substance to change my outlook on things. Let me check out for a while. You know, what am I doing wrong? I wasn't there with that. I didn't do that.
That's amazing.
May I ask a question? Sorry, Vanessa. I'm going out of order. But I have a question for you, Marvin, regarding that as it relates to Mental Health Awareness Month. Sure. How were you able, you just said it, that you didn't take a drink or use a substance and when you were younger as it related to your success or anything else going on in your life at that time. What was it that kept you level-headed, and what did you do to make sure that you took care of your mental health during the times that you had the very highs in your career and the very lows in your career?
Well, I mean, to just bounce right off of that, you never let the highs get you too high. You never let the lows get you too low. And regardless of how good they say you are, you're not as good as they say you are, but you're not as bad as they say you are either. I look at it, other than something like baseball, where if you go, you know, get 3 hits out of 10 at bats, you know, that's success. In something like music, athletics to a certain extent as well, acting, you know, some of these glory professions that, by the way, everybody wants to do until they get to the point where they can't do them. Just saying. If you say, I am going to succeed 95% of I'm going to succeed 5% of the time and fail 95% of the time. If you know that that's the setup, and in the music business, that's pretty much what it was. 5% of the records at the time were succeeding. They would make the money back, become successful, and then out of that 5%, other artists would blow up and get awards and sell a bunch and make tons of money or whatever. But 5% succeed, 95% fail. If you just extrapolate that to everything you do in that business and you say, okay, 5% of the time I'm really going to succeed, but 95% of the time I'm going to fail. You can either look at that 5% as a norm or as an anomaly, right? So a lot of people, you know, they get a success, but deep down, whether it be self-esteem or just the way they look at it, like, okay, that success isn't really what's supposed to happen. When I fail, that's really what's supposed to happen. So they can't deal with the success, so they turn to whatever in terms of their mental health, and they don't enjoy the success as much or whatever, and the success is a burden because all it does is kind of amplify what happens during the failure. For me, I saw that success, I'm like, okay, this is the norm. I'm in a screwed up business, so the failure is going to happen a lot, but that's not on me. I know I'm capable of success. So my norm may only happen 5% of the time. It may only happen 1 or 2% of the time, but it's already happened once. I know I can keep working to make it happen again. All right. So that's what it is. I think that can be extrapolated into a lot of different businesses, into a lot of different approaches and the like. Yeah. But as soon as you start thinking that this extraordinary success is a norm, you know, I used to tell people, I'm like, this is not a salary that I made when I made this money in this year. This was a lottery ticket. So I'm not going to sit around next year and say, okay, if I go to the same store and I buy the same lottery ticket, I'm gonna make the same money. No. But they look at it like it's a job. Well, if I record again like I did for my first record, and if I talk to people the way I did for my first record and do the press and everything, I should have the same exact success. And that's not it. That's not what it is. So as soon as I knew that reality, and then I met some really successful people that had really poor social skills, and really, really poor, I guess home training would be the best way to say it. So I could see the things that my mom and dad my mom especially would just, hammer into me. And I'm like, why are you so caught up in the way I talk? Why are you so caught up in blah, blah, blah? And then I get around some other people that didn't have that, but had massive success, but then had issues because of some of the things they weren't taught.
Right.
I'm like, it was something that really was eye-opening. And I was able to put my entire career, even up to this point, literally, if we're in 21, I'm like 34 years away from my first recording. I can put it into perspective.
That's really helpful, because the words that I think about, Marvin, when you talk about that, my favorite thing you said was, I'm capable. And if things don't work out, it's not your fault, because it's a lottery ticket. It's not the norm. So your perspective taking in that is really healthy. And that's something that sounds like it's just your wiring. This is kind of your practical, analytical self. Like you're thinking about it from that place, and what a healthy thing to do to navigate something like the music industry.
And if I can add something to that too, because someone who would take that approach could also be a bit defeatist and say, well, I know that I'm going to fail a lot. So if it feels like I'm going to fail, I'm not going to try my hardest. My thing was, every record I made, even if it was an album cut, I wanted to make it like a single. I would think to myself, all the songs that I recorded that a lot of people didn't hear, I'm like, if this is the only song that people hear from me, or if, God forbid, if it's the last song that people hear from me, I want it to be the best song that people hear from me.
Right.
So it's not about succeeding and failing based on, okay, did you go platinum? Did you make this money? Did you get this kind of notoriety? It's, did you try your hardest? Did you do your best? Did you take the growth that you had and put into your art? If I know that I did that, then I have a small victory even before I go out there and take the slings and arrows of the 95% of failure that I'm destined to see. You know what I'm saying? But if I don't do that, and I say, well, there's a 95% chance I'm going to fail, so I'm not going to try my hardest. That way, when I fail, I don't feel bad because it wasn't my best effort. I will tell you that so much failure that people experience is based in the fact that not necessarily they're scared to succeed, but they're scared to try their hardest and fail. And what I was able to do, I went to an accelerated high school. I know multiple kids that got 1600s on the SATs, tons of kids that went to Ivy League schools, lawyers, judges. There was this, Elena Kagan in the Supreme Court went to my high school. Lin-Manuel Miranda went to my high school. I mean, just amazing people that went to my high school. But the point being, at 12 years old, I was shown that there are people smarter than you. You're still smart, but there are people that are smarter than you. You can compete and you can get into the middle of that pack or whatever, but there are people smarter than you. There are people that can, pursue their dreams and all that stuff. And then people looked at me saying, wow, I DJ'd my own prom. I was like a music head. People look at me and say, wow, you were able to do what you wanted to do. And I put myself in a place where I could do what I wanted to do, but I also know that there's other people out there working hard in the whole 9 yards. So I don't think that I'm king of the world. It's not about the superhero thing, which goes back to people getting to know Marvin Young as opposed to what Young MC was, or is, or the like.
Right.
That's so helpful.
Would you say that a lot of that comes from your foundation of your upbringing, from your parents? You mentioned your mom and dad.
Yeah,
Do you think that philosophy comes from them, the value system that you adopted?
I think obviously the value system comes from how I was raised. That but I think even beyond that, it's like I've been around some rough people. I've been around some people that have not. I've been around some people that have not had the best opportunities. So I recognize the opportunities that I had, but also seeing, when you see people hustle and people, hustle that don't necessarily have the opportunity to get a college degree and get behind a desk and put on a suit, but they got to hustle, like street hustle, that kind of thing. When you see that and then you put into context that kind of drive and keeping yourself safe and all those other things, and then I look at my situation where I've, God bless, I haven't had to deal with much of that or any of that really, to know that I can put that same kind of drive into my music, into my business, into other things, helps me put it all into perspective. Plus, I have a lot of friends with straight jobs that sit behind desks. And some of the best conversations I have, are about economics and acquisitions and, just like, behind the desk, straight job stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I can still take from those conversations things that are going to help me in my business. And also looking at the music I make as an asset and that kind of thing. It's like, you're never really done.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of my drive and a lot of my approach to everything makes me know that, yes, I've accomplished a good amount up to now, but I'm not totally done.
Yeah.
And can the next one be better? Can I, can I get some ideas out that'll move somebody? When the one thing about this era and social media and the whole life, people will come back to you with some really inspirational stuff that you didn't even intend in your music. So knowing that there are definitely people listening, even if you think, oh, the record didn't sell this and it didn't get this, whatever. I've had people come back to me with comments on records that I didn't think anybody heard. And it made me feel good about the effort I put into them. The whole trying your best.
Yeah. That's powerful. Okay. So my next question, Marvin, is I love poetry, and Ruby Core just has a new book of poetry called Homebody. And one of my favorite poems in there is, nothing tastes better than being on your own side. And I think that's beautiful. And I just heard you explain your wiring, Marvin, and how you're on your own side. You're not putting your worth in what other people think or what is successful. You've kind of come up with a percentage that works for your brain. But in the 5% or whatever it is that you're doing, you bring your whole self with you. You're always on your own side. You're going to do your best. That shows a lot of integrity. And so I was just talking about that. And it sounds like Lisa already asked, but I think about all these intersections of being a Black man, being an immigrant, living in, just from what you've shared and I've learned from you, having Jamaican parents and moving to England and then moving to New York City, and then moving to the West Coast, being a, super smart kid in GT programs. All of these things help guide you in the way that you think about being on your own side. So I just would love to hear more about how you're on your own side.
Well, real quick, in terms of the 5% and the effort and all that other stuff, if you literally just take it as 95 versus 5, my effort and my hard work is me saying, let me give myself the best shot at the 5%. Absolutely. It's not guaranteed to me. It's not promised to me.
Right.
But the best shot I have at achieving it is doing my best. And that I can honestly say I've done on every record, even the record I recorded in my house. Not that I didn't have studio money, but I'm like, let's see how good my home studio can sound. And I've got licenses where a record that was recorded in my house got a license to a TV show, or a license to a video game, or a license to a commercial. Thousands of dollars coming back for something that I did in my home. As an old school guy, that blows me away. So to your question about being on your own side, if you're not on your own side, who's going to be?
Exactly.
Right? So to me, a lot of this all begins with self-esteem, and not being on your own side. To me, a lot of times that happens because you're so interested in impressing someone that you don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who this person is. I don't know what they do. I don't know the impact that they would, actually have on my life. But I'm in a mental state right now where I feel they're going to have a lot of impact on my life. So I'm going to get out of my lane and I'm going to do something beneath my character to try and impress that person. And that may not even be a worthy effort.
Right.
Right. But you want to get that person on your side. Well, if you're already on your side, unless this is like some really rich, successful person, or some person that can really help you a lot in your business and all that other stuff. If this is just a stranger, how can a stranger be more on your side than you? Exactly. And if they are, then that's a you problem.
That's right.
That's a self-esteem problem. You being on your own side, you're the most educated about yourself. You're the most experienced about yourself. You're the most hopeful about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What is some stranger going to tell you about yourself you don't know? And if they tell you a little something, then that may help you be a better you. But that person on your side should not mean more to you than you being on your side.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's powerful. You're speaking to a lot of kids right now, Marvin. Mm-hmm. And we talk a lot to adolescents in our practice here, and families, and especially young budding kids and peers. Mm-hmm. And what I usually tell them is that you're the expert in who you are, and your growth mindset concept, it has been a fabric of your life, your entire life, as far as you can remember. Sure. And that is a gift that you've given yourself that other kids can't see. And, mm-hmm. and I'm so glad that we are talking about this. It's so important, based on what I was telling you when we were sitting across the table. We were talking about doing this podcast. I've lost some kids this year. It's been a tough year for a lot of families, a lot of kids. Sure. In the world, so for you to be able to speak to that and understand, and to a point that 5%, you got a 5% shot.
And that's generous, because now huge. These days there's more music, so it's less than 5% now. But that was in 1989, 1987 when I signed my deal, that was the percentage. But go on, I'm sorry.
But I'm just thinking, like, the 5% is still, I got 5%, it's I still have a chance. So for me, that's what it means.
And here's the thing, Lisa, having success on my first record, right? Mm-hmm. Having that success so early, even if somebody said it's 0% today, mm-hmm. I would think it was higher than 0% because I had that success before. Okay. So I took the success that I had and used it as the best foundation and the thickest armor for me to go forward.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So my question is, and I can ask you so many other ones based on what you're saying, but my next question is, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail?
Oh. All right. Are we talking for the world or for me?
For you.
Because obviously, I would endeavor to cure cancer if I knew I wouldn't fail. Mm-hmm. I would work to end racism if I knew it wouldn't fail. Mm-hmm. I would get peace in the Middle East if I knew I wouldn't fail. You know what I mean? Those are the answers that come to me if you talk about altruism in the world and the whole bit. If it's me, I'm not looking to walk on water. Mm-hmm. Just tell me, just give me in the next Bitcoin early.
Right.
Get me in a penny stock early.
Yes.
Give me time to catch up with all the friends, that I haven't had time to, that as I'm reflecting, that I say, man, I should have reached out to this person, right. That person, whatever. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Let me speak and be understood. Whether it be to my friends, my relationships, whatever. Those are the things. If I knew I wouldn't fail, I would do those things, because it's not as much. I mean, obviously the Bitcoin would be enriching myself, but a lot of it is you want to live in an environment where people around you are enriched. You know what I mean? You don't. If you're doing great and everybody around you is doing poorly, then it's not. What's there to enjoy?
Right.
I'm the kind of person that even if I had all the money in the world, I still want to hustle, because the hustle feels good.
Yes,
the money feels good, but the hustle feels real good. Mm-hmm. The money feels real good if the hustle's behind it.
Right.
So if you gave me a couple million, I'd want to double it, triple it, mm-hmm. with my hustle. Right. Saying that extra 3, 4, 5 million came from my hustle, that mm-hmm. would make me feel good. Okay. Because the hustle's what I work on. Mm-hmm. I mean, so yeah, that's kind of my approach.
And yeah, you've been hustling since what? Your young age of what? How far can you go back?
I started rhyming at like 11 or 12.
I was gonna say 11. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I gotta shout him out because I don't enough. Jeff Taylor, 210th Street, and back in Hollis, Queens. First time I ever picked up a mic was in his basement. The only thing I ever taught him was about BPMs, which he uses to this day. And I'm the nerd. I'm like, let me get the numbers. But in terms of my confidence on a mic, being an 11, 12, 13-year-old kid around 18-year-old kids and holding my own then, mm-hmm. I learned that in the basement of Jeffrey Taylor.
Wow.
Grandmaster Key, Born Key. I'll send this to him so he can see it. But mm-hmm. I have to say that out loud, because a lot of this confidence on the artistic level came from that. Right. If your friends played stickball the whole 9 yards, went down in his basement, saw somebody I think rapping over either Walk This Way or Good Times or something like that. I was hooked. I was done. Give me a pen and paper. Let me go.
Let me go. I got it prepared. Alexis, what's your question?
Yes. My question is, so let's talk a bit about love. What is your definition of love, and how has that influenced and impacted your platonic and your romantic relationships in your life?
Okay, let me ask you something. How old are you?
I am 20.
Okay, you're 20. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm this is not a trick question. I'm coming at this from a certain way. So how old were you when you first had a concept of love beyond parents and family members, but you had a concept of love? How old were you when you had a concept of love, you having love? You know, when was the first time that you could remember that for someone outside your family?
I would probably say, 8th grade, maybe.
Okay,
for my friends,
realizing so 14?
Yeah, around 14.
14. Mm-hmm. So and I'm just asking the questions to set up what I'm going to say. So just, this ain't no trick or whatever. Is your definition at 20 of love, your definition of love at 20, is that different than your definition of love at 14?
Yes.
I'm 54. Mm-hmm. How many definitions of love do you think I've experienced in my life? I can't count, right? Right now, to me, especially in my relationship with my fiance, who has changed my life, it involves sincerity. It involves no ulterior motives, because being a person with, who's a public figure, who can make money, who can get in the rooms or whatever, you get run up on people, whether it be romantically, platonically, business-wise, that have ulterior motives because they're like, well, if I can get where he gets, I can do X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So being able to exhale, being able to be yourself and not worry about a reaction outside of your relationship. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Those are the things that are kind of impacting. But my definitions of love literally multiply the number that you have by, 5, 6. That's how many I have. So it's not a question I can literally answer with that. But just in terms of your own life experience, and when you're 26, you will have a different one. When you're 35, you will have a different one. In your 40s, married, children, the whole night, you will have a different one. Yeah. You just will.
So I agree with that. I agree with that, because I'm thinking as you're speaking that I'm in a stage of my life where I'm falling in love with myself. Mm-hmm. After so many years of being so many things, to different versions of myself to other people, sister, right. Daughter, college student, niece, all the things. Mm-hmm. I forgot. I felt like I was diluting a part of who I am. And it's just this last year, calendar year, Marvin, that I have figured out how worthy I am as a person, and how I can reinvent. Like you said, we're always learning, always growing, and I'm not done yet. I feel the exact same way. And I've given myself permission to find out who Lisa is and how to reignite some of the love that I have for myself. So for me, I'm thinking self-love is really my jam right now, because I have given so much of myself to other people, whether it's the job that I'm doing as a social worker, you can imagine, and other things that comes along with that. But I also am taking time to love me more. Yeah. And being unapologetic about that. Mm-hmm. And speaking of time, I just thought I would interject that too, do that. So if you had, what do you wish you had more time to do? If you had more time, what would you like to concentrate on?
I don't know. I can't really say. See, I hate to be in a position where I'm not really answering your question, but I don't approach it like I don't have enough time to do things that I'm not doing. I approach it like I want to take the time I have to do the things that I want to do. Mm-hmm. All right. So it's more getting out of my own way, and doing more of the things that I know that I want to do and I should be doing, as opposed to, man, there's not enough hours in the day to do this random thing outside of, put it like this, I'm the worst person to buy a gift for. because if I need something, I'm gonna get it. And if it's too expensive for me to buy, I'm not gonna bring it up. So anything that I would really, really want, ain't nobody gonna buy for me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So something that's that big, not gonna buy for me. And it's something that can be bought by taking a little trip or clicking online. I'll just get it so I have it. Mm-hmm. You know, so I can look over and say, okay, I can utilize it for this, and this, and go get it. Yeah. So in terms of time, if I needed to get back in the gym, I usually would go in the morning, so I have my whole day. Mm-hmm. But after COVID, the gym had started, I hadn't gone back. So I went in, my trainer wasn't there, got with a new trainer. I can only train midday. Mm-hmm. Man, it's breaking up my day. Well, I find now that I'm out, I can run an errand over here. I can do whatever there. So it's not a question of things I'm not doing. Mm-hmm. It's literally incorporating the things I want to do into what I'm already doing. And that's more of a mental exercise than me sitting here saying, oh, it's killing. People have a lot more time than they tell you.
That's true.
People like that. They sleep, they wind down, whatever. People have a lot more time than they tell you, but you're just dealing with something that they don't want to do. Yeah. So now I'm at the point where I'm just, hey, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I sleep a whole lot better. That's me being me.
Right.
Young MC don't say yes to everything. Well, Young MC does say yes to everything, but Marvin says no all the time. You know what I mean? Just whatever.
Let me ask you, when we were in Texarkana and I was sitting and listening to sound check and listening to the song that you were rehearsing at the time, Nocturnal. And
yes,
we talked a little bit about that. I had to bring it up. It's highlighted on my paper right here. Vanessa and Alexis weren't there at the time. And I had the pleasure of sitting and talking to you about
before you ask me.
Yes, sir.
Before you ask me, oh boy, that's it. All right, hold on. All right, you know what? I'm gonna have to take this. I'll take this later. Before you ask me, I'm gonna say I'll say the third verse for you. And the reason I will say the third verse for you, and it's a little bit explicit, but it's not crazy explicit. But the reason I will say this third verse for you is because this is the best verse that I'd ever written in my life. Wow. And the record, I recorded the record, I think in 07 to 08. The record was released in 08, so it's 13 years old now. And I'm about to get into doing some recording now. Mm. And part of the reason I want to record is because I think I may have I think I may have created a better verse than this one, out of Nocturnal. So here we go. I'm setting the tone for those that were sweating alone. You were thinking that your life was just set in the stone. If you worry about your sins, son, you better atone. I'll be creeping through the night just like a predator drone. Let it be known. All your people get on the phone. Calm your homegirl down. Look like she ready to bone. Someone got her liquored up and gave her steady Patron. I can smell it on her body like some heavy cologne. Let her go home. Put her in the bed on her own. If she feels sick, let her put her head on the throne. Because it's better than a stranger trying to get her to moan. Cody had a green light, but there's some red in the zone. Never be known. Things that can never be shown. In the cover of the night, though the cover was blown, there's a happy ending here, tragedy postponed, but tomorrow night is still unknown. It's nocturnal. Mm. So, in that verse, I was thinking about it because I know what you were hearing in terms of dealing with kids and at risk or whatever. I actually, I cover, spiking drinks and date rape and just and I have so many multiple entendres going on in that verse. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's like, when I went back and made a remix, I had done a film called Justice Served in 2015, and I made a remix of Nocturnal for the closing credits of Justice Served. Mm. And then I got on a 90s tour, and I said, this will be good. I was cutting a trailer for the film. I said, it'll be good to have the visual of the trailer behind me. Let me do 2 verses of Nocturnal. So I did the first verse, which introduces the song and the concept, and then the third verse, which I just said to you, with a trailer for the film behind me. And I did literally about close to 200 shows with that setup. Wow. And every time I get on stage, I'll just be more and more intense because it's like there's so much going on in this verse I want to get out to.
It is. It caught me right here. And that's why I brought it back up again. Mm-hmm. So what is the greatest gift that you've ever given yourself? Besides the gift that you just gave to us?
Forgiveness.
Mm.
Say more.
Talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Just whatever. Just forgiveness for for things I thought I did that I did not do. Forgiveness for someone getting their feelings hurt when I didn't mean to get their feelings hurt. Forgiveness for not being a superhero. Forgiveness for being human and being allowing myself to be human. That's the biggest forgiveness, is to allow yourself to be a human being.
Yes.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. So who's on your playlist? Now that you spit a couple bars to us, who are you into? Who do you like?
Here's the funny thing. I would go and I get CDs and I listen to entire CDs when I'm getting ready to start writing.
Oh.
So right now, I have even though this is an older record, I'm a Drake fan. And by the way, the T-shirt, dig.
Yes, the T-shirt.
Yeah.
That's about my sampling, MPC X over the shoulder, whatever. So, I'm a fan of Drake. I think he's a great song creator, songwriter, the whole bit. So I have Drake Scorpion.
Oh yeah.
I have the Black Pumas, which I'm intrigued to listen to. I have Future.
I like Future.
I have Dua Lipa because I love that. I love the single, but I love the album. I have the last J. Cole, not the one that's out now, but I'm assuming that there's a mixtape, and I believe this is the album before it, but I haven't been keeping up. So, and then out of left field, 3 albums by the Black Keys. Yeah, I am a massive Black Keys fan, and I saw them. I'm talking myself out of school a little bit, but I was watching the Jake Paul fight, and first thing, Bieber killed it on that. I got my peaches out in Georgia. Oh, forget it. he killed it, but the Black Keys opened that. You know what I mean? Let alone they have, Mount Westmore with four guys who I know and great crew and a whole bit. But I mean, it's great watching the fights, but musically, especially coming out of COVID, to see that movie, that pushed me. I'm like I should start recording too.
Yeah.
So, literally, I look to buy these records after that, and I'm gonna put them all together, listen down as and just let it inspire me.
That was the next question was what sparks your creativity. You just answered that question for sure.
Yeah. Just seeing people happy with music. Knowing I could write something new that people could get something good out of because of all the stories I've heard. The one thing about the internet and social media and all that stuff, there are places I've never been, people I've never met that know every word to my song, sing along with it and that kind of thing. That's amazing to me. I'm still on that level.
Wow.
So when I get a favorable comment from a fan, or a listener, really, because I'm not into the fan thing as much as I'm into the listener thing. The hard work I put in, it makes me feel good, and it makes me want to go and do more hard work if I'm, if so inspired, because I don't write as many songs as other people. There's people I know that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs, and they have a lot of songs that haven't done that well. I have a very high ratio of songs that I've made compared to the songs that I've made that make money, whether it be in a commercial, video game, TV show, overseas license, whatever, I want to make something that has a shot from the economics graduate standpoint to make money.
So what's next for you? So you say you're getting back in the studio and doing your thing.
It's gonna be a while. I'm slow, so don't even put some time on it. If nothing comes out before 2022, that may just be Marvin Speed. Because if I make the next original material I make will be the first original material in over 13 years.
Wow.
I literally have not recorded anything in over a decade. Anything. I mean, other than the remix for the movie, which I really don't count. You know what I mean? I made some music for the movie, but in terms of a musical approach, it's been over a decade, and like I said, nothing original in 13 years. So my first original material in 13 years.
How exciting!
Yeah. So are you doing any tours as things are opening up slowly? Are you going to?
It's slow. It's slow. The show we met at was a private show. The show I done before, was a private show. Right. I'm doing a state fair or the San Mateo. I think it's the San Mateo State Fair June 5th, and then another fair in Colorado in July. There's other dates, but and other hold dates within that time period. But it's going to be a little bit, at least in my opinion, until the public shows definitely come back.
Yeah.
And when you see a promoter bring people out, charge ticket prices, make the money back, then they'll start opening up in terms of more gigs. So I'm thinking, August, September, October, it's going to start getting thick.
Okay, that'll be a good thing.
Sure.
So if we were to, we're winding down on the questions, but I do want to end how we started, and that is to make sure that we leave some parting positive words for our kids and listeners, as you so well put it, on how to navigate through this life of trauma and loss and COVID and the things that we're seeing. Like you were saying, social media, we're getting desensitized based on the things that are easily accessible for kids. I can tell you stories for sure, but what kind of messages of hope can we give to our kids and to the listeners of this podcast and families as well?
I think a great analogy is the young girl that's looking at the pretty model image online, and how she doesn't know the sausage making that went into making that picture, whether it be the girl starving herself or the lighting or the airbrushing or all those other things to make you think something looks like reality that really isn't. So using that as a baseline, I would say that there's a lot of airbrushing going on. And there's a lot of people who appear as brave and as confident as you'd ever want to see, and they're terrifying. But the more money they have, the more fame they have, the more people they have between you and them, they get to block you from seeing their fear. Whereas your fear, as we talked about, the personal experience of you're the best expert of you, your fear is more apparent to you than anyone else.
That's so true.
My point is this: the pretty girl in that picture is just as scared as you are. And regardless of how beautiful you may think she is, she's called herself fat, or she's called herself ugly, or she's called herself some of the mean names that you call yourself, because she's scared just like you. So if you know that, it'll help you deal with people better, because you're not the only one scared. You're not the only one down yourself. And it's all small steps. You read a book one page at a time. You read that page one line at a time. You read that line one word at a time, and you read that word one letter at a time. Start with one letter. Read the one letter. Get through that letter. Make a word. Get through that word. Read the line. Get through that line. Then a paragraph. Then a page. You know what I'm saying? Then several pages. Then a chapter. Wow, I just read a chapter. Then you read a bunch of chapters. Then you read the book. When you get to the end of the book, you can feel great about reading the entire book. But if you're on page one and you're caught up in the thought of, I got to read this book because X, Y, and Z read the book and they did this and that. No, read the first letter.
Yes.
Wow. Well, we could end there, like mic drop, like right there.
I got a mic, but it's too expensive to drop. I'll hold it. You know what I'm saying?
Lower softly the mic. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we have in our practice, we have Vanessa has in the office. Vulnerability means speaking your truth, even if your voice cracks. And I'm glad that you're able to give our kids permission and families permission to be vulnerable. Is a strength. To be vulnerable means that you're resilient and you're strong and you're brave and all the things that you were just saying, which why we were all enamored for this opportunity. So I thank you so very much. How can we follow you? You have social media handles? So,
yeah, I mean, I'm not as active on social media as I should be. I mean, I guess I will be recording or whatever, but
okay.
I want to say it's official Young MC on Facebook. My Instagram is YoungMC89. I want to say it's is it official Young MC on Twitter? I'm not. If you look for it, it'll be there. You know what I mean? I'm not the greatest at getting back. I'm not Mr. DM. Whatever. I have them because I have to. But when I come with my music, you'll hear it.
Okay.
When the music's coming, you'll hear it.
Well, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for this wonderful opportunity. I'm so glad that I said yes to Shay because that led to this opportunity, which she asked about you, by the way.
Wonderful. Well, tell her I said hi.
And she's doing well, so I'll definitely let her know. And I want to thank you. Vanessa, any parting words that you would like to speak on?
I'm so grateful, Marvin. And, just listening to you, a couple things come up, just kind of the speech that you gave to all the kids listening, all the people listening is, not getting trapped up in the comparison. And I love thinking about this term. It's a self-compassion practice of common humanity, which means you're worthy, but so am I. And so is everyone else. And
it's not exclusive. Just because I'm worthy doesn't mean you're not. And just because you're worthy doesn't mean I'm not. Yeah.
There's enough space for everybody to be worthy. Yeah. And that's my takeaway. And it was so beautiful listening to you and sharing your story. So thank you so much for showing up and being your best self. So thank you.
Yeah. I just want to, I know we're wrapping up, but I just want to just add to that. A lot of people find self-worth in putting other people down.
Right.
All right. So they feel horrible about themselves. And instead of being honest about that, they'd rather put someone else down in their circle, someone close to them, someone they have that power over to make them feel good about themselves. Just see that as a dynamic. You know what I mean? Yes. That person that's close to you may not have your best interest at heart, especially if you're succeeding and they're not. They may not have your best interest at heart because the worst case scenario for them would be, oh my God, here's someone on my level doing better than me. That means they must be better than me overall. I got to sabotage that. There's so much of that goes on. There's so much of that goes on. So just keep eyes open for that.
Yeah, Brene Brown calls that counterfeit intimacy because it's not real connection to be able to do that.
I like that term. Yeah, definitely. That sums it up.
Yeah. Thanks, Marvin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm honored.